right, everybody. Welcome back to Talk with Coach, the podcast where we deep dive into the realm of sales, leadership, and personal growth. I'm your host, Becky Goldsberry, an elite sales and leadership coach, proudly representing Southwestern Consulting. I'm thrilled to embark on another insightful journey with you. Whether you're a seasoned professional aiming to sharpen your skills or an aspiring leader hungry for knowledge, this podcast is your compass to success. Join me as we explore strategies, tactics, and mindset shifts necessary to thrive in a competitive landscape of sales and leadership. Get ready to unlock your potential, seize opportunities, and conquer challenges like never before. So buckle up and let's embark on this transformative voyage together. Welcome to Talk with Coach. So today I am excited because I not only have one guest, but two guests who are both amazingly brilliant, and I have loved getting to know them and work with them for a very long time. So my first guest is a financial advisor with West Point Financial Group here in Indianapolis. With more than 20 years experience in the financial service industry, he works closely with his clients to help them establish and organize their financial goals, as well as create a diverse investment portfolio that uniquely aligns with each specific goal to their wishes and that they want to accomplish and achieve. He takes a very holistic approach to his practice by analyzing and continually reviewing every aspect of their financial situation over time, considering any changes or surprises that are bound to happen along the way. So something else about him is he is an Evans Scholar out of Indiana University, which also included a full tuition scholarship for 4 years. He is an active member in the community and volunteers his time with St. Vincent de Paul Society and the Western Golf Association. In his free time, you will find him at the golf course, coaching youth sports and running the caddy program at Hillcrest Country Club. He also enjoys spending time with his wonderful wife and 2 kids. My second guest is also in the financial services with West Point Financial Group. He also provides objective and customized insurance and investment strategies to meet the financial goals of his clients. He is a graduate of Butler University. He has a Bachelor of Art in Journalism, which I did not know. We may have to pick apart that because I did not know that. He was also part of the men's basketball team and was a 4-year letter winner at Butler as well. So before then, he served as the vice president of sales for Fitness Flooring. And before that, he was a sales rep with Dawn Food Products. He is a member of the Joel Cornett Foundation, serving on the program committee. In his free time, he loves spending with his wife and kids, David and Connor, and they all love the Indianapolis area. So welcome to the program, Vince Saul and Mr. Nick, who, Nick, I want to know, Mr. Nick Gardner, I want to know more about this journalism thing. I had no clue. Like, could you read us, like, poetry on our calls? Like, what,
I could. It wouldn't be very good. I don't know if the listenership would spike because of it. But, yeah, I was not a good test taker, ironically. And so I hated taking tests. My mother was actually an English teacher. So I was, at an early age, corrected on my grammar, oftentimes when I didn't want to be, right? Like at the dinner table and whatnot. And so I think I just kind of naturally went down that path. And really the crux for me was avoiding tests. And I liked writing, and it came easier to me. So that's not always the best method of choosing a selection to study. But that's how I ended up there, and I learned a lot.
That's awesome. Vince, what was your degree? What'd you get?
Oh, man, I took the scenic route through college, and basically my degree was in public affairs. Management was my major, I guess, but honestly it was default. I started out as a math major because I'm really good at numbers. I thought I might want to be an actuary because my neighbor growing up in Fort Wayne was an actuary, and he would send me articles about how that's good for people with math brains and they make good money and there's low stress environment and all that stuff. So I went to IU as a math major, but quickly got weeded out about halfway through my sophomore year, and uh, by that time the grades weren't great enough to, sneak in anywhere else. So I kind of took the path of least resistance at that point. But so my degree's in public affairs as a management major, but I don't want to manage people. I can tell you that.
There you go, Nick. How about that? That's apples right there.
Yeah.
I love it. So I know both of you guys have a true passion for sports. Nick, you are still very involved in Butler basketball, and Vince, you and playing golf and doing the caddy program at Hillcrest golf course up there. So I would love for you both, because I think this is so interesting for a lot of people, especially those who are in sales or in business. If you've got these strong ties to great programs, great networking groups, how you can really serve and I don't want to say get new clients from those areas, right? But like it opens up a wider spectrum for clients, networking opportunities, and the like.
Well, I think for me,
Yeah, I'll
especially,
go.
sorry, I think it might be my connection here. I don't know if I need to like limit my camera to kind of free up some stuff, but I think from my standpoint, what that allows me to do is work my natural market when I'm on the golf course or I'm involved with my friends and acquaintances through the Western Golf Association, or if you're playing at the country club with guys or whatever. It's a natural market where you aren't really even very salesy. You are just out there enjoying somebody's company for 4 hours. It's a great period of time to get to know one another, see the nuances of different people. The good you will see the good and the bad of people's personalities on a golf course. Trust me. And you get to determine whether or not it's somebody whose personality is aligned with yours and that type of thing. So as opposed to being in a real high salesy situation where you're making a phone call and an ask and a pressure situation like that, this allows, now the sales cycle is a little bit longer this way, but it allows you to really get to know one another a little bit better, and it is a natural market instead of a salesy type environment.
Absolutely. Nick, what about you? Because I know you still do a lot of stuff with Butler basketball.
Yeah, I think in the same regard, like that's something I'm trying to get better at. Something you're helping me get better at, Vince, is taking that natural market and just being more natural in your conversations with people. One thing I've learned in getting into this industry is, and I learned it from this guy, is like everybody's a prospect, right? And when you get in that mindset, it's hard to see people as people sometimes and not just a prospect. But the ability to do that more naturally over time allows you that when you do make that phone call, they know what you do, they know who you are, and you cut through a lot of the stuff to be able to do some business. And I think on the other side of it, like the stuff that I learned from playing at Butler basketball, like we had 5 pillars that I think about every day, right? Humility, unity, servanthood, passion, thankfulness. Those 5 things, those carry over to everything you do. And so like not only the network, but those lessons and things, I think that everybody, whatever you learned from whatever organization or whatever you came from, those things translate into our business and how do we approach people and things like that. And those are things like literally I think about every single day. And I haven't been in that, environment for 20 plus years, but those are the things that mold us. And I think that's why you see a lot of people that have a background like we do in our industry because of the competitive nature of it and a lot of the things that translate to how you're successful there can translate to success in this industry.
I love that. So, Vince, for you, how did you get into financial? How did you just wake up one day and say, "I'm going to be a financial advisor"? What was your story? How did you get into the world? Oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry, I muted myself while Nick was talking. So going back to finish that college question, I really got into sports marketing and management. That was really the management piece. And so I started doing internships through a minor league baseball team up in Fort Wayne, and then Indiana Sports Corporation down here. We were doing Olympic trials and college athletics stuff. And long story short, I was in my first 3 jobs out of college. I was making a little bit more money each time, but with every position, it was a dead end. And whether that was because there was no growth above the position and above me because they're small companies, or an ownership change or whatever. And so at one point, I started thinking to myself. I actually read a book called "What Color Is Your Parachute," and it was a great book that helped me form not just resume building skills, but also it made me think about my skill set, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I like to do, what I don't like to do. And through that, I kind of narrowed. I wanted to, rather than continue to make a little bit more money at each road that had a dead end on it, I told myself, forget about money right now. Let's figure out how you can set yourself up at the finish line, and let's work our way backwards on how we're going to get there. And I didn't have a great skill set of any kind. I didn't have any specialized knowledge of, I'm not a CPA or a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. But I knew I could outwork people, and so that was really my greatest asset. And so in terms of controlling your own destiny, financially, probably mostly, it was either I looked at this, and I looked at commercial real estate as 2 positions or 2 careers that I would have interest in, and talked with a lot of people in each field, and ultimately decided that not everybody needs a piece of commercial real estate, but everybody, I think, needs a financial advisor. And so with more fish in the sea to fish from, I chose that career as a way to do that. And at the time, I think I had $2,000 in a Roth IRA with my own financial advisor, who was my college roommate, and he was with at the time Dean Witter. I called Mike, and I said, "Hey, Mike, is this something you think I could do?" And he said, "I do. It's going to take a long time and a lot of hard work, but yeah, you should try it." So in June of '01, I started with Morgan Stanley. I guess it was Morgan Stanley Dean Witter at the time, and 23 years later, actually my anniversary will be June 29th. It'll be 23 years, and so. But that's how I came to the decision. It was really a situation where I wanted to control my own destiny, and I've actually used that phrase with my clients now as they look to me for help in their finances. It's hey, let's put you in a position where you control your own destiny financially, and I can kind of use those stories together and pair them up when I can give my own personal testimony about how I wanted to control my own destiny, and that's led me down a path of wanting to help others do the same with their situation.
I love it. Nick, what about you? How'd you get started in it?
Well, I would if you would have told me 7 years ago that I was a financial advisor, I would have fallen off this chair probably. So I was Vince is a big reason why I was. We had a family business going back years ago. There's a bakery supply company. We had to close that. I worked there right out of school. And the plan was always kind of take over the family business, right? Well, we got hurt really hard in '08, '09. Went to work for a competitor, which was a big, huge corporate operation, and I hated it. Went to work for another private kind of small business, the flooring business. And look, the goal was in the end to be my own boss, own my own business. A lot like what Vince said, not have to answer to anybody and kind of control my destiny. And so as I was looking to, like about 5 years ago, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that I needed to get out of that flooring business and find something new. And just happened to meet Vince a few months before that, and ran into him at a car dealership, and we started talking. We got together, and he actually recommended something he had never done before and said, hey, you should take a look at this industry. And again, similar to what Vince's path, mine was a little later. I mean, I was 38 years old. I had 2 kids already, and I was like, oh boy, I gotta do something. So controlling your own destiny, being your own boss, this industry provided me with like every box I wanted to check as far as what the industry entails and the job entails. Autonomy, kind of the freedom that I want, and having ownership of it. It just happened to be in an industry that I was very unfamiliar with and like didn't know anything. I mean, my dad ran a family business, and we talked about that. We didn't learn about how to save or what to do. So I took the dive. I kind of went, I had gone the more safe, conservative job route throughout, kind of the 15 years or so that I was working. It was all like salary stuff with a little bit of a commission. And I mean, part of my mindset was like, I'm gonna go George Costanza and go opposite this time. Like, we're gonna go eat what you kill and do it. So I just went for it. I love it. It's been great. It's been hard. Obviously, it's hard to build these things, but Vince and I talk a lot like we're building something that is mine. And so there's a lot of value in that down the road that I don't see just yet, but I know it's there. And so that's kind of the path that got me here.
That's awesome. So what advice would you have for somebody who, both of you guys, I would love for your thoughts. What advice, if somebody's like, you know what, that sounds interesting, maybe I should look into being a financial advisor. What advice would you have for that person?
Call the 5 wealthiest people you know and ask them about their money and see if you can do it. And if you can and you don't have any drawbacks, then you'll be all right. But that was something I had somebody tell me. Nobody in our business, but he was really smart. And he was like, all right, if you're thinking about this, can you call this guy, this guy, this guy, and ask them about their money? Because if you can't, then you shouldn't do it. But if you can, then there's a start.
Yeah, and I think for me, I would say, I always tell young people or whoever's asking me, it is very much a sales job first and foremost. I mean, I've seen. I mean, you look at Nick's diploma and my diploma; they don't have anything to do with what we're doing. And I've seen other really, really, really smart people who have their MBAs in finance, and they've at some really, really great universities, who are terrified to pick up the phone. And you can be the smartest person in the whole wide world, but if you're not willing or able to pick up that phone to ask somebody for the opportunity to work for them and manage their money, you're going to fail no matter how smart you are.
I know.
And so,
Vince, are you there? I think you froze on us.
Oh shoot! Sorry.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know where you lost me or where I lost you guys, but it's I've seen really, really smart people fail in this business because they're terrified to pick up the phone. And it really is an asset gathering job. You've got to be willing to pick up that phone. You've got to have the guts to ask people for their money. And if you can't do that, you're going to fail. But I've seen really, really bright, successful people otherwise who can't do this. And then you got people with, history and communications majors and, management majors that really, have had success because they just kind of roll up their sleeves and do the sales part of the job.
So I guess going into that, you know, what was the best advice, outside what you guys just said, but the best advice somebody has ever given you guys?
Um, one that I heard early that I think, especially for our business and like when my transition, it really resonated was like, some will, some won't, so what? Um, like, again, getting to the know is great, but you can't take it personal. People you think are going to work with you won't, and vice versa. And, that you can't, you got to let it slide off your back a little bit. And the quicker you know they won't, the better. So that was one thing where I've tried to learn and make sure, like, getting to the know is fine, and don't worry about it. Move on to the next one.
Awesome. What about you, Vince? What was the best business advice somebody gave you?
That you've got to be patient. Just do things the right way, and just be patient. My mentor is my college roommate, Mike, who's up in Chicago and was the financial advisor who, I lean on regularly still today. But when he started, he said, Vince, it's gonna take a long time. You're gonna come home at night and bang your head against the wall and wonder why you're doing this. A lot of your friends are gonna make significantly more money than you over the next decade. But you've got to keep building this little by little. It takes patience, and then at some point that growth is going to look like a hockey stick, and then you're going to have you're going to be making more money than a lot of your friends, and you're going to have more autonomy than others. And so you just got to have patience and play the long game. Was probably the greatest advice I could have gotten, because had he not told me that, I might have quit. And I think that's what happens, especially with a lot of young people or new people getting into this industry. We live in a world now where, social media is, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30-second clips, and it's a get rich quick environment, and small, short attention spans, and everybody wants instant gratification. There's a tremendous amount of turnover in this industry, and I think unless you can, ground yourself and set those realistic expectations about how little you're going to make early on and how much you might be able to make at some point, the better off you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Becca, I've got one more that Vince actually gave me that I still think about too. It was one of the first times we met. And he's like, you've got to toe the line of being, super impatient and then being super patient at the same time. Like you've got to have super urgency with people, but you can't show that, right? You've got to toe that line a little bit. And so that's what I've tried to do. And it's been true. Like, man, sometimes you meet somebody and you forget their name, but you hear what they do. You're like, oh, there's a prospect there. And then you're like, oh, how do we get to it? But you've got to juggle that. And that's something that stuck with me that Vince shared with me early on.
Good advice. What is the biggest challenge for you guys in your business at the moment?
Oh, we don't have challenges, Nick. Every day's a picnic. I think the biggest challenge is so early on it's building your business. Early on it's finding clients, and it's proving to prospects that in a world of high attrition that you do have staying power, that you do know what you're doing, that even though you've been in the business 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, you are more knowledgeable about the markets than they might be. I think, early on, I used to, you could sit across the table from a 60-year-old silver-haired business owner, and I'm like, you really have to have the confidence that you know more than that person when it comes to the stock market now, or investing money rather. Now that 60-year-old might be smarter than you in many, many, many different aspects of his or her life, but when it comes to investing money and putting together portfolios and allocating properly and all that stuff, I would venture to say once you've passed your Series 7 and passed all your tests to become a financial advisor, you probably know more than 97% of the people in that area. And unless you have the confidence to know that and understand that, it's still going to be really, really, really hard. And that actually, honestly, takes some time to build that confidence. But so that would be an early challenge. I think later then, the challenges become as your business grows and continues to build. The challenge now becomes how can you maintain that high level of service. It's easy when there's very few clients, because that's really all you got to do is handle a handful of clients. But once you have grown your book of business and now you've got hundreds of clients, now it becomes really important that you maintain that high level of service that you were able to provide when you didn't have many, and still make them feel individualized and loved and all of that. So that becomes a challenge in terms of just scaling your business and making sure that no one falls through the cracks at that point.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think along those lines, I'm much newer in the industry, just 5+ years, and so like juggling kind of both of those, where early on you're just like whatever you can get, you're trying to take, and so then as you grow as an advisor, you've got this larger book of business. You still have to grow that book, but now you need to work on the business and how do you operate your systems and processes? How are you making sure those things aren't falling through the cracks and whatnot? And it's hard to juggle those two things, I think. And so that's where it's just different types of problems. But as your book grows now we got to make sure, number one, can we scale it? If this were to be something that we wanted to sell, how attractive is that to somebody? So how do we work on the business while growing it and juggling those things? But for me, I try to dumb it down and keep it as simple as I can still, where if I set 2 meetings a day, we're good. We're good. That means we got 2 more meetings. And so sometimes you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. And I've always tried to kind of dumb down and stay task-based, because for a guy like me, 5 years in, I always feel like there's more you could be doing. And that's a hard feeling to have constantly. And so you've got to have a check and balance to not run yourself ragged or lose your mind.
I love it. So can you guys give us a couple ideas how you overcome both of those challenges?
Yeah, I'll get, like mine was, and I started this when I was doing that, is just being tasked. Like I was so used to sports as a scoreboard. In sales, you got the sale or you didn't. When you're getting going in this business, there's not a scoreboard for you. It's hard to tell if you've had a good day or not. And so what I tried to do is really just be task-based, dumb down my task, but just say, hey, I'm going to send X amount of emails or this amount of that. And if we did that, then the results are going to take care of themselves. And that's another thing, just leaning back on like my time at Butler. It was never result oriented. You control what you can. Each day we're going to try and get a little bit better. We're going to do everything in our power. If the shot goes in, the shot goes in. We did everything right. And we're not going to let that dictate how we prepare the next day. And so trying to take kind of that mentality to a career that is much different than I had come from, and still being able to have that self-fulfillment that you're hitting those goals and hitting those tasks, to be able to have the energy to get up and do it the next day. So that's been a way that has really helped me personally.
I love it. Vince, what about you?
Yeah, how do I do it? Well, now I understand the purpose of this podcast. It's really self-serving for you, Becca, because I couldn't do it without you. I'm really, really, really good in a similar way about, the task-oriented stuff and making my phone calls and, doing all the stuff on a daily basis to feel busy, to feel productive, to look busy, to look productive. I am terrible about pausing and doing more longer term planning. This industry, this business is so fast paced. It's so Everybody needs something now. The markets are, wild and crazy from time to time, and it really is hard. I always feel like if I carve out a morning from 9 to 12 or 8 to 12 or whatever to do some planning, I feel like there's 4 hours of missed phone calls, and I always feel like if I'm not on the phone, I'm not really working. And so to have you help, with a better plan of looking down that road to help us figure out what our weaknesses, what our flaws, what do we need to get better at, what are the drivers of our revenue, what all those types of things. And by putting that phone call on the calendar every couple weeks, I mean, Nick and I joke like, "Oh my God, didn't we just talk to her like a day and a half ago? Or do we really have another call?" It forces a holding spot on that calendar so that we are held accountable to doing some of the stuff that, frankly, I wouldn't do otherwise.
I love it. Well, and I appreciate that, and that's why I love working with you guys, though, too. I'll tell you that, because, you guys are so coachable. And the true fact is that you guys are some of the most genuine advisors I have worked with, who have just a big heart to serve your client the best way as possible, right? So to me, that's what I love about working with you guys, because truly at heart, you just want to help as many people as possible. Because there are a lot of people out there, and hopefully if they're listening, they realize that everybody needs a financial advisor. I was actually talking to one of my good friends who's a CPA, and we were talking about everybody needs a budget. Whether you're a 1099 commission-based salesperson, if you're a business owner, everybody needs a budget, right? And I truly believe everybody needs life insurance. I believe everybody needs a financial advisor. Like those, there are just certain things that I feel everybody needs in their corner, and financial advisors are one of them. So I would love your guys' perspective of, where do you feel the industry's going? Where do you see maybe like the pitfalls of why people need to reach out to an advisor? Hopefully they can reach out to you guys, and I'll leave your information below. But why does everybody need a financial advisor?
I'll take this one just because I've seen, when I got into the business in 2001, Charles Schwab had an unbelievably brilliant campaign. They had the surfer dude, teaching this stuffy old man in a suit how to click a button and make, $1 million in one day, buying some .com stock that went from $2 to $150, and basically showing you how easy it is for $9 a trade, and why would you pay an expensive financial advisor when this stuff is that easy. So I've seen the tech bubble pop. I've seen the Great Recession from March of 07 to October of 07 to March of 09. I've seen COVID, and in each of those experiences, you can talk about discount brokers or robo-advisors were hot for a little while. There's a AI buzz right now going on that, is going to put the advisor out of business and all this stuff. I think when the market's going up, most people feel like they don't need an advisor. But I think where we really create our biggest value is when the market starts falling. And trust me, when the market starts falling, people want to have a live voice to talk to. They don't want to be on hold with an 800 call. They want to talk to somebody who knows them, who knows what their plan is. My little elevator speech when people ask me what I do is it's to help people make really good financial decisions in an unemotional fashion. And I think, when the market starts falling dramatically, as recently here as during COVID, when the market fell 35% over a 3-week stretch, my phone's blowing up, and that was a miserable time to be in the stock market. It's very chaotic. People are full of panic and anxiety and fear and all that stuff, and we'd never seen anything like that before. And there were so many unknowns. We become more of a psychologist than we do a stock picker or an investment person at that point. And so just to have the safety blanket of a live voice who has maybe not been through COVID before, obviously, but has seen downturns in markets and who understands the ebbs and flows of these things, I think we will always have a job because of that. And so these trends may come and go from AI to robo advisors and all this stuff, but I think when the rubber hits the road, people do really need a financial advisor, and frankly, even if it costs a little more, it might be worth having one than not having one, and maybe you save a little money that way, but you're actually losing money because of it. And so, but in terms of in the future, I think really with social media and branding and things like that, I think that's really where you just need to stay relevant with people. But there's nothing like servicing a client that cures all of those little trends and things like that. So I don't know if Nick, maybe you see things differently, but that's been my experience.
No, and usually when I just tell my story, and that is I didn't have a financial advisor. I never met with anybody until I was in this industry, and that's where as I got going, meeting with a lot more younger people who were just starting their families. That was an area where I had a lot of people in that natural market. And it was like, hey, you're 10, 12 years younger than me. Don't be like me. This is why I'm calling you. Okay, there's some things you need to do now that I wish I had somebody call me about. And so that's why I'm calling you. And that's a pretty easy, who's going to say no to that, right?
Absolutely.
So to me, that's where I was just like, hey, I'm what you shouldn't do. If I would have done something for the last 10 years, even at a small amount, here's what this could be like, right? And X and this and that. And so I just tell them my story. Look, I tell them all the time, I said, look, I was sitting in here in the second day of training, and I went home, and my wife was like, how are things going? And I'm like, we're screwed. I didn't do this. We haven't been doing this. I called my dad, like, hey, Dad, why didn't you tell me about this, that, and the other? And so it's like, hey, and I'm fine, right? But I would have been in a much better place if I had met with somebody like Vince 10, 12 years ago. And so that's usually there's value there. And look, it may be a really small relationship to start, but to me, even if you've sat down and had that conversation and at least had a little bit of a relationship, maybe you're not doing business or anything, right? At some level, meeting with somebody is going to provide value. And here's how we work with our clients. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, I know you guys know people where they didn't have life insurance, for instance, nothing, and then something tragic happens to the family, and now everybody's caught in a big pickle, right? So I think to me, that's just one example where, and I also think about nobody ever talks to college students about compounding interest, even if it's just $25 a month, right? Nobody ever talks about compounding interest to anybody.
No, it's something that's something I've done at Butler. We've gone back a few times with the student athletes. Another advisor and I, we get with them. We just go hey, when you're going to get a job, look at these things: group benefits, things like these are part of your compensation package. These are things you need to be aware of when you're going to get your first job in your career. And here's some ways. Here's what you need to be aware of. And just simply, to Vince's point, like he said earlier, I think we often don't understand how much we know about things compared to our clients or our prospects. And so oftentimes simply educating them is going to open up opportunity for us and make our lives easier when we are in front of those people. So that's something that, again, back to the prospecting thing you asked about, and those we've done some things to try to help educate folks on those very simple things that we just brush over, but they don't even know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Love it.
too. One story that I'll never forget, and I wasn't even in the industry at the time, was back in the mid '90s, I think, or late '90s. There was the head legal guy at Conseco, which was a
Yep.
insurance company here in town. He It was very tragic, but he was deboarding a helicopter, and as the propellers were, you know, losing power, uh, one dropped and decapitated the guy. And I remember seeing, the story later that he didn't have an estate plan for his family. Now here's the head legal guy at a Fortune 500 company who doesn't even have a will or a trust or anything like that, and that is, to this day, almost 30 years later, still very, very eye-opening that you can't assume that people have their act together. You just don't. There are very busy, wealthy people who just, like me, in my own business, don't take the time to plan because you're just so busy doing the day-to-day grind that you don't stop and take that time. There are business owners all over the country who similarly are just so busy running their company that they're not taking care of other stuff that they need to. And I just think it's a really good reminder that it's why you need to ask. And I always, whenever I feel like there's, somebody who maybe I'm a little nervous to ask to do business with about it, whatever, I'll say, hey, look, I assume you probably have a team a team of advisors around you. But if you ever need a second opinion on what you're doing, or if there's part of your investment portfolio that you're not happy with or whatever, I'd be happy to provide a second opinion for you at no obligation. And I think a lot of people would be surprised at how many people come back and say, you know what, Vince, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm actually not working with anybody. Or, they start whispering and go, I don't have a buy sell for my company, or I don't have a will. I know I've needed to update this will. It's been 20 years. I just haven't gotten to it. So I think just like Nick's situation, some people are embarrassed to admit what they have done or haven't done. But I think
That was me.
Yeah, there's a lot more people like that than there aren't. Trust me. And it's just a good reminder to continue to ask, and all they're going to do is tell you no, and maybe they say yes.
That's right. So, what would you guys say if somebody's like, I don't have a will, I don't have nothing set up, I just have maybe like a 401k that work helps contribute, does some contributions to? What would be like a first good few steps into maybe helping secure their future?
I think first is just know what you got. I think oftentimes we meet with clients. A lot of times we're saying, hey, what do you have through your employer? What are your retirement account matching rules? Do you have any group life insurance, group disability insurance? What is that? 9 times out of 10, they know they have something. They don't know what it is, right? And those things are all over the place. So a lot of times we start, let's get an idea of what you have. To Vince's point, like, let's just look at it. We'll give you an honest opinion. There's countless, there's oftentimes we've looked at statements or whatever, or policies, and said, look, if you're trying to, like, these are good funds, this is a good portfolio, we're not going to beat that. We're not going to do anything different, but maybe the relationship isn't right, or something like that. So I think first and foremost, get a snapshot of what it is and really understand what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think, many times I think people just get overwhelmed with either a lack of knowledge or just not a grasp, like Nick says, of knowing what they've got. And I think, a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, I can't afford to put away money right now in my 401k. I've got student loans, I've got a mortgage, I'm saving for blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, they say they can't afford to do it. we say you can't afford not to do it, at least a little bit. And Becca, it goes back to your compounding interest thing too. So the earlier you start, the less money you need. And so, if we can just get somebody to, you can do both. You can pay off student loans and your rent or a mortgage or whatever, and still put away a little bit of money in a 401k plan or whatever you've got, because, they might be matching you. And so, by putting away a little, you're going to pick up a little bit more, plus all the compounding interest and things. But, the people who say I can't afford to do it, are the ones who we say, well, you can't afford not to do it.
I love that. So I know you guys are super busy guys, but what are some of the fun things? How do you guys take a break? What are some of the fun things that you guys love to do just to take a break from serving so many people?
Nick G?
Who wants to go first?
Again, it's funny, I was going through looking at books and different things that I've been listening to or watching, and I realized I go through different phases where there's times where the books I'm reading are very much career driven or whatever, or the podcast or Audible book I'm listening to. But of late, I've been like escaping work through that stuff, so I've been like reading different stuff like that. So usually, but most of my free time is with my kids. I've got 3 boys, and spend a lot of time with them. They're into sports, and so running them around and being with them. But I'm pretty simple, and then just hanging out with friends. I play some golf here and there, not as much as I'd like, but that'll come in time. But most of my time is spent with my kids, my family.
I love it. Vince, what about you?
Yeah, you know this about me, Becca, but it's golf, 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 and more golf. And I help run a caddy program at the country club during the summertime too. So I'm busy trying to get kids on the golf course and that type of thing. I used to sing in a band for 15 years, and so that was sort of I always said the one half of my brain works with the money, and the other half is my artsy side. So I haven't sang in the band now in close to 4.5 years, and so that's because my kids now are a little bit older. They're 18 and 16, and but we like to go to concerts together as a family, and golf. And my daughter will be going to Bloomington in the fall, and so we've just purchased football tickets now so that we can get down. They got 8 home games, so I would assume I'll be spending a lot of time following the Hoosiers football team and stuff like that. But in the wintertime, I love throwing logs on the fire and watching Christmas movies with the fam and that type of stuff. So it's pretty simple. My wife works for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. She's really, really busy, especially this time of year. But we cherish the time we have together when things kind of slow down from that standpoint. I used to coach the kids when they were competing in sports and stuff like that. But now, like Nick, watching them compete. And my daughter did show choir for 4 years and played on the golf team. My son's running track and field and cross country. So a lot of chasing the kids around and watching them compete, really, whether they're good or at it or not. Just watching them care about something that they enjoy is really fulfilling.
That's awesome. Yes, and the race this weekend was a really good race on Sunday, and I'm glad we were able to get it in too. I'm sure your wife was too.
Long day, yeah. It was actually a beautiful window while they ran. It was gorgeous, but getting there, yeah, they took the scenic route. So she got home a little bit after, 11 o'clock probably, and then she was up and out early the next day because she had to do the victory celebration last night. She got home after midnight again last night, so she'll take a couple days off here this at the tail end of this week. But yeah, pretty intense time, but it was a great day and a really exciting finish.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the fun things I always love ending the podcast on is, can you guys share, and Nick, we'll start with you, what is the funniest story about you when you were growing up?
Well, I think the one that was appropriate for this podcast is so I have two older sisters. We used to go to my grandparents' lake house all the time. So they made this nickname for me. They call me Kicker G still to this day. And the reason was when I was like 5 or 6, their whole game that they played is they would throw me in the water and act like I drowned. And like that was the entertainment at the lake house. And it'd be like, Kicker G, no. And so they started it. So like I still get called that to this day by my sisters and my dad sometimes when he's like trying to get my attention. But we just laugh because the whole onus of it was drowning their little brother was the game.
Wow.
I did things like that to my younger brother too, unfortunately. I'm surprised.
Well, when I share that story, it's like a lot of older sisters are like, yeah, I get it. So that's one that sticks. Again, to this day, I still get called Kicker G, and it's all from that.
There you go. Vince, I guess you know how to get his attention now.
Yeah, no doubt. Mine is probably a PG-13 version for the podcast listeners, and understand that times were different back then. But when I was in high school, I was a senior. I'm one of 9 kids. I've come from a big family. I'm number 2 out of 9. We grew up with, not a whole lot of money, and so because of that, my dad drank beer that was whatever was on sale, and he drank Carling's Black Label was probably his most popular beer. You could get it probably for like $2.99 a case, warm at wherever. And so he rarely drank good beer, and so I'm a senior in high school. My brother's a junior. The Saul boys were out on the town one night, and we left some remaining bottles of some Bud Long Necks in the back of the station wagon. And so when I woke up on Sunday morning, I came downstairs. It was probably noon, and my dad is sitting there drinking a Bud Long Neck, watching the football game that had kicked off. And so I run back out to the car, and I looked in the station wagon, and the beer was not there. So I ran back inside. I looked down in the downstairs refrigerator in the basement, and there were several Bud Long Necks that were still sitting in there. And so I ran upstairs and woke up my brother, and I said, "Hey, did you bring the beer in to the downstairs refrigerator?" And he said, "No, it's still out in the car." And I said, "No, it's not. And Dad's drinking our beer." And of course, we could never say, "Hey, Dad, you're drinking our beer, man," And he didn't say anything to us. I mean, he just let us sit there in it. He was drinking really good beer for one of the first times in his adult life. He didn't want to cut off the head of the golden goose. So only many years later did we say, "Hey, Dad, remember that one time?" So we let Dad drink our beer that time, and I mean the good news is we didn't get busted, but that was kind of a funny little story from our childhood.
That PG-13. That's awesome. PG-13, absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you both for just coming on. Here's insight about the amazing work that you guys do, and hopefully everybody takes away the importance of just reaching out, asking questions, and talking with somebody who knows what they're doing as a financial advisor. So I appreciate you guys. But everybody, this wraps up another empowering episode of Talk with Coach. I hope you found today's podcast insightful and valuable.
Hold on. Before everybody leaves, I just want to say to people too that Nick and I are coming off of our single best years of production last year in 2023, and we couldn't be doing this without your help, Becca. You're a big big reason for our growth, and you hold our feet to the fire, and you're worth every penny. So thank you very much.
Hey, absolutely. That's what I'm here for, guys. And so I'm right there in it with you. The more clients you help, that makes me happy. So I appreciate it. So you guys are the best. And so just remember, guys, until next time, keep striving for greatness. Keep pushing your limits, and remember, your success story is waiting to be written. This is Becca Goldsberry signing off. Take care and make it a blessed day.